All right, I'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Conservation, Sustainability and Green Initiatives Committee to order. Council, can you take the roll call?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reinhardt?
Yep.
Efficoro?
Yeah.
Commisso?
Here.
Fine?
Here.
Lockhart?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Plotsky?
Here.
Simpson? And Tunney.
Here.
8 present, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, thank you. The first order of business is to approve the previous meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments? I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, meeting approved. Minutes approved. First order of business is the public hearing on proposed local law number J for 2021, a local law of the County of Albany, New York, authorizing the county executive to negotiate a long-term power purchase agreement for property owned and maintained by Albany County. Who is going to speak on this? Luke, are you gonna?
Yes. Yep. Hi, Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Chairman Reinhardt, members of the committee. This is a request to schedule a public hearing for a local law that is required related to a solar project that we're proposing. Following, as you're aware from previous requests, we did a multi-site analysis of county-owned properties. The property determined to be most feasible for development was the county-owned parcel that is off of Watervliet Shaker Road that has the airport radar tower located on it. The way the industry really works, the federal tax credits make it advantageous for a power purchase agreement and a private developer to finance a project whereby we purchase the power and they own the asset. As opposed to, say, a county funded project that would not be able to take advantage of those federal tax credits. Those power purchase agreements run typically 20 or 25 years, and there are certain provisions of county law that limit long-term agreements. And when we need to exceed that, it requires an action of the legislature via local law, which is what brings us here today. So happy to answer any questions. Again, this is just to schedule the public hearing, but if there are any questions related to the project, happy to discuss.
Yes. Peter
Luke,
first.
Luke, thank you, Mr. Chair. Luke, is this land that we're looking at over there, is this open space currently up behind that tower? Or is it a wooded lot that we're going to cut?
So there's the section we're looking at, if you're familiar, and I think you probably are somewhat familiar with the parcel, given that it's in your district.
Yep.
We're looking at the area south of the radar tower. So there's a wooded section that is north of the tower that is old growth forest that we are staying far clear of.
Okay.
South of the radar tower, black locust that grew up. Basically, when it was farmed land, they were planted to divide the different parcels of the farmed property. But because they're an invasive species, have spread significantly. Those we are considering as part of the project, removing and replacing with solar with local pollinators. Those final decisions have not been made, but that's being evaluated strictly for those invasive to the south. Again, we want to preserve and stay clear of the previously undisturbed forest to the north. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Patrice, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lucas, I was reading over the materials and I just want to make sure I understand it right. You're anticipating from this project a quarter to a half of the energy supply will be supplied to the county buildings, I mean, the whole county government? Not just like the airport or the nursing home over there, right?
That's exactly right. So you can choose the accounts that you bill the credit against, because it's obvious, it's not like the olden days where you would basically connect the power directly to the facility that you're utilizing. It's all remote. And so we can choose the facilities that we credit against. And ideally, we'll credit against the biggest accounts because that's just the simplest way to do it. But
Yeah.
our estimates based on the size of the proposed facility, it's hard to put an exact number on it until we have a final design, but approximately 1/3 of the county's power supply.
I'm sorry. That sounds very significant to me, amount of energy going to be able to save. And the cost of, I'm sorry, the cost that, the rate, I guess, that we would pay for that, that's yet to be determined. How do those rates, when I was reading it, and I apologize, it's just kind of technical, some of it. How are those rates derived? I mean, we're talking kind of years off, so we don't really know what the price would be down the road, but how do you come up with that?
No, it's a very good question, and it is technical, and it's complex for people who work on it every day. So,
Can you do it
but
for me to understand?
to summarize it, the way this would work is we would enter into a power purchase agreement where we're paying a set rate to the developer for the power. We would then be compensated, and this is how it works across the state. We would be compensated by what's called the VDER rate, value of distributed energy. And that's set by the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
And it's based on a few different factors. It's your location in the state, it's the size of your facility and the amount of power you're putting into the grid. And it is what they call the E rate, the environmental rate. So what environmental benefit are you providing based on the power you're producing? And so once we go to construction, if we go to construction, we'll get locked into an initial rate, and then that will adjust over time. And the sort of industry expectation is that compensation rate will increase over time.
Okay. And one more question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, in regard to my colleague's question a little bit about the site over there. We're always worried about views of these things. From the roadway and from any adjoining properties, will they be shielded from view from going down Waterville Shaker Road? Are you going to even see these panels from the roadway?
There is shielding built in. Again, a final design is not set. I wouldn't say that you wouldn't be able to see anything. I think you'll know that there's a solar facility there. If you're familiar with the landscape, it is sort of a hill there.
Yeah.
So it will likely be sort of naturally shielded a bit. There is going to be what they call a visual analysis conducted, and be happy to share that. I don't want to suggest that you will have no idea that it's there. You will, but the plan is to build things into the project so it's not any sort of reflection issues for drivers, or B, an eyesore for anybody.
Yeah, and I asked that because we had out in Con, the Hill Towns are very concerned about the view shed with the Thatcher Park and so forth from some things. And I just want to make sure we're also concerned about it here in the suburbs too, what we'd be looking at or some of the other areas. And I assume that would be part of the project, that you would take those things into consideration.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Luke, I have one question that has to do with the rates that we end up paying. Is there any flexibility? I know in the past, when we did a community solar or a remote solar farm for the town of Bethlehem, we had an option when we were looking at rates about an escalation clause. We could either pay a little bit more up front and have a flat rate, or there would be an escalation clause built in. And you kind of alluded to the fact that there's probably going to be an escalation of cost over time. Is that a subject of negotiation, or is that pretty much fixed now by the PSC rules?
No, for the PPA rate, it's subject for negotiation. And just to clarify, that's the rate that we would pay for the power. And you can do, you're exactly right. Those are the two ways to do it. What I was alluding to is it is expected based on the industry and state policy that the compensation rate, so the money that we get back, is expected to increase over time. And that's the differential that you really want to look at. What are we paying versus what we're getting back? If it's
Right.
neutral, or if we're getting back more in compensation and it's actually making the county money, then that's obviously an important consideration. And it's worth noting that PPA agreement that I referenced will come back in front of the legislature. So this is a procedural step, obviously, to allow us to move forward, but we still need to negotiate. And if it's in the interest of the county, execute that PPA rate that will, once the interconnection process is complete, have a breakdown of whether or not this is financially a good investment for the county.
Right, yeah. Okay, are there any other questions on this item?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yeah. Yes, Vicky?
Is the old growth forest on the map that was attached? Or is that further away?
It's everything. There's a significant area of forested land to the basically above, to the north of the property, that stretches basically the upper half of the property.
Okay. All right, I'm just looking at the map and it looks like the panels come right up to a stretch of forest. I don't know if that's what you mean by the old growth or if it's further away.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I talk about previously undisturbed forest, and we want to keep it that way, versus for trees that were planted in the last few decades for farm purposes.
Okay, and the whole facility gets fenced in?
Sorry?
Does the whole facility get fenced?
Yeah, there's a fence for safety purposes, and then alluding back to the view discussion, a lot of other projects have integrated sort of, whether it's shrubbery or something more aesthetically pleasing than just a fence, around areas that would be part of the view shed or visible.
Okay, I'm only asking because, it does take the property from wildlife, and I'm in favor of it, in favor of the solar project. It's going to produce a great amount of energy, which is very cool. I just wanted to check how far away we really are from the old growth forest.
Yeah, no, we're not going to touch any of those trees as proposed, and that's why we're proposing the wildlife aspect, is why we're proposing to plant the native pollinators in the actual area of the solar farm, because we'll actually be removing an invasive that is not natural to this area and this habitat, putting in pollinators that are natural, and the idea there, that's sort of a best practice from a ecological wildlife management standpoint.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mark?
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, Luke, how many trees do you think you have to take down, or you have to take down some trees? Do you have a clear idea of just how many trees are going to be removed?
We haven't done a count. That's something we could certainly talk about. There's sort of two stretches there of the invasive black locust that what you can sort of see on the map. That would be the plan to replace with the solar and the pollinator.
So you're saying your plan is to take down trees that are infected, I guess? And then
they're invasive, so they're not natural to this area. They're if you look on the DEC invasive tree list, they're trees that shouldn't be here. It's just that 30 years ago people didn't know that, and they grow very quickly, so people would grow them to divide their crops, And that was the case here where, because they're invasive, they were actually sort of ideal for that. They would spread very quickly, and now we sort of know better. But at the time, that's not to, it's just that there wasn't the awareness at the time. Now we know better, and it's just how do you deal with that issue that has developed. And so those are the trees that we're contemplating taking down, which is, could be viewed as a benefit in and of itself, but it's something that this is all weighing the costs and the benefits, and we think will be a benefit to address that issue, add the solar, and add the pollinators.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mark, I just want to add one thing to Luke's response.
Okay.
When you ask the number of trees that you would cut down, it depends on what you mean by tree. And what I mean by that is, these are weed trees. I have these things growing in my raised bed. In my raised beds, in my garden, in my back, they like come up all over the place. And, they start very small, and then before you know it, they're like 4 stories high. So that's really a technical question. Like, is a 6-inch sapling a tree or not?
I see, that's interesting, Bill. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, they're really obnoxious if you're trying to grow things or have landscaping that you want to take care of.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? If not, is there a motion to approve the public hearing?
Motion.
Okay, Bararo, motion, and Matt Miller, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, it was unanimous. The second item is the actual local law, J, for 2021, a local law of the County of Albany for essentially the same thing. This, I guess we table because we don't act on it until after the public hearing. The next item is the authorizing the acceptance of a memorial flagpole at the Anley Pond Nature and Historic Preserve. Luke, are you going to speak on that, or Cameron?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is Mike McLaughlin. I can handle
Okay,
this.
go ahead, Mike.
Yep, thank you very much. Thanks for members of the committee. Just basic permission, anytime there's an installation of any kind, even if it says something as, simple, or I guess something that we all like Eagle Scout projects, we need permission to allow that scout, in this case, to do that. So the scout approached us with interest in improving the Anley Pond Preserve. And so here we are just asking to allow him to do so.
Any comments or questions? All right, is there a motion to approve this authorization?
Motion.
Matt, second?
Second.
Vicky, okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now we have another one,
Thank you.
similar, authorizing the acceptance of 2 storyboards along the Albany County Helderberg-Hudson Rail Trail.
So I will be handling this Eagle Scout project.
Okay.
This is a nice segue. Thank you, Mike, for explaining everything. But yeah, this particular Boy Scout who's finishing his Eagle Scout program approached the town of Bethlehem and town supervisor Van Leuven about installing these storyboards. One will be in the Delmar section of the rail trail, and the other will be in the Slingerland section, both in Bethlehem. 2 of 7 in total storyboards. And as you can see in the attachments from the agenda, it gives you a good idea of the relative size of the storyboards, not too big, not too small. But yeah, on county property. So we just looking for approval to have these installed.
So these are the Goldilocks size, not too big, not too small.
That's what I gathered.
All right. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve this authorization?
I'll move.
Matt, and a second.
Vicky
Second.
here.
Vicky, was that a Vicky?
Oh, yeah,
Vicky,
but
you didn't raise
Barolo
your
has
hand.
one to turn to.
We all want these good ones.
Yep. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion carries.
Thanks, Chairman. Thank you,
Um,
legislators.
Yep, thank you very much. These are, I love these projects along the rail trail. Okay, that's the last of the agenda items. Does anyone have anything else to say, or are we ready to adjourn? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned. I'll see you.